Hey guys, welcome back to another Earthen Rangers video. This is a continuation of the edible, medicinal, and survival uses of wild plant series. And today we're going to be talking about one of my, I'd say at least top 10 favorite wild plants. I've had the pleasure and opportunity to work with this plant many times on many different harvests, and this is, right behind me, the Blue Elderberry, also known as the Mexican elderberry. This plant is a native, ranging all the way from Mexico, all the way into Northern California, and all the way up into the Pacific Northwest. So it has a pretty massive range, and it's a pretty common plant. By no means is this plant endangered or threatened. This plant is doing very, very well. You can commonly find this plant in riparian zones, oak savanna grasslands, chaparral. This plant is really, really amazing, and it has a lot of awesome uses. The first thing we're going to talk about is the edible uses, and it's a little early. This plant is already fruiting, but the fruits are not ripe. But I'm bringing this plant to you guys so that if you're interested in harvesting this plant this year, you'll have time to prep and do some studying and dirt time, and you'll be able to do your own harvest this year because it's still a little bit early. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this cycle of the edible properties are going to be like. And so what I want to do first is just go ahead and find an umbel. This plant has clusters of flowering umbels, very similar to the yarrow that we've already talked about and the poison parsley hemlock that we already talked about. So you can see there's two plants that have very different properties, so it's very good, and it's a great idea to really build a strong relationship with these plants so that you're never accidentally harvesting something toxic. I used the word poisonous earlier, but it's not actually poisonous. They're actually toxic is the correct terminology. So these are these beautiful cream white clusters of flowers, and they smell absolutely amazing. And something that you can do with these is you can take these umbels and clip them off, and you can dip them in a batter, and you can actually make elderflower fritters. They are one of the best tasting things on the world. So definitely recommend trying that out. In addition, we also have, once the flowers die back, they'll be replaced by the actual elderberries. Now when these elderberries first come in, you'll see this thing going on here where they are green. So you can actually see, I know my camera kind of sucks, like I said, I promise I'm going to get a better one, but you can see some of these dried flowers that have receded and died back, and now they're all dry and crumbly, and it's replaced by these little green balls. Well, these green balls are going to turn blue, and that is the blue elderberries themselves, but they're not actually ready to harvest until they're midnight black. Once they are midnight black, they are ready to harvest. However, this plant is in the rose family, so like many other plants in the rose family, there is cyanide in the seeds. It's just a small amount of cyanide. Another plant that you've probably all had is apples. Apples are in the rose family as well, and there's a small amount of cyanide in the seeds of apples, and that's why you've always been told do not eat apple seeds. It's not going to kill you, but if you eat a whole bunch of them, it's definitely going to make you sick and you're going to throw it up, so it's something you want to be aware of. How you can prepare this to get rid of that cyanide is either dry the elderberries or cook them. That process will kill off any of the natural occurring cyanide in the seeds. So let's just go ahead and take a look at this plant real quick. This is actually the trunk of the elderberry right here. This is not, even though this is a really big plant right here, this is a shrub. This is not a tree. One way you can identify this is by this deeply furrowed bark, and then the leaves themselves have toothed edges. In addition, you kind of see these alternating leaf systems, very similar to the black walnut, which we're going to be covering here in just about a week or so. Another amazing property to this plant is it can be used for hand drill fires. And if we actually take a look at this broken branch here, we might be able to see why. Yeah, so we can actually see why. This broken branch, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it, but in the middle of the branch is what's called pith. This is a much better example. And in order to make a hand drill, the wood that you're using must have a center layer of pith, which is kind of a cottony, styrofoamy material. I'm gonna dig some out with my fingernail because this section of branch is already dead. So that's this stuff right here. It's really soft and cottony, and that's absolutely crucial for hand drill fire making materials. Here's an excellent broken branch. You can see that outer cambium of hardwood and then the center layer of pith right there. So that's a great example, that broken branch right there. Another quick thing about the fire making properties is that a lot of times this plant will send out shoots that are perfectly straight, much like this plant's doing right behind me. The reason why is because it's sending out these branches trying to reach sunlight. You'll especially find this in places like riparian zones where there's a lot of competition to get up and out of the canopy and to reach that sunlight, and that gives you perfectly long straight branches for hand drill fire making. You can also make arrow shafts out of this wood, but they don't last incredibly long. After a few times firing them, they tend to shatter and break down. But in a pinch, it does make a wonderful temporary arrow shaft for a primitive bow. Look at these. Look at these tall, beautiful branches that are just stretching to the sky. For those of you who have practiced atlatls, which we'll get into in the future here, atlatls is a primitive weapon that was actually utilized prior to the bow and arrow. It's kind of like a cross hybrid between a bow and arrow and a throwing spear. It's a really cool tool. And so you can actually use these for atlatl darts as well. But it's kind of same principle because they have that kind of hollow center layer of pith. They do break easily. But again, you get those perfectly straight branches from them. Last thing I'm going to mention is the medicinal properties of elderberry. Elderberry is fantastic for boosting the immune system. In fact, there's a lot of current research going on with it in regards to its extremely high antiviral properties. You can even buy this plant in a syrup form in many natural health food stores. And it's fantastic. Every time I feel like I'm getting sick, whether it's a cold or a flu, I drink and or harvest tons of blue elderberry, and it's amazing. A lot of times I can kick the cold or flu before it actually takes hold. So it's really, really awesome. So again, guys, this is right behind me, the native blue elderberry. Just remember, if you're harvesting, never take more than 1/10 of the berries or flowers from the tree, making sure to leave plenty for birds and other critters, and so the plant can regenerate in the future. In addition, if it's the only blue elderberry in the area, you might not want to harvest from it at all, or just take much, much less than 1/10. Beautiful plant. Beautiful plant. You got to get out and harvest this. It is so tasty. You can do things like primitive elderberry pies, and you can make crusts from things like acorns, pine nuts, and we're going to get into all those fantastic properties from the pines and the oaks a little later. We'll be doing pines in the summer, but we're going to be waiting till the fall when those oaks are fruiting before we get into their properties. But getting on a tangent here, so I'm going to bring it back to blue elderberry, and I'm just going to kind of stand back so you guys can see the whole plant here. Absolutely gorgeous. Alright guys, thank you so much for joining me on our newest edible, medicinal, and or survival uses wild plant series. This is again the native blue elderberry, and it is amazing. Check it out. Right now it is flowering and fruiting, so go in your area, identify these guys, smell the flowers. If you could do so in an environmentally friendly way, go ahead and harvest some of this plant and experience it, build a relationship with it. It's amazing and you're gonna love it. As always, thank you for joining me. Stay aware and protect.